Hey, welcome back to Connection Point Studies. We're in this series called Pro-Choice. It's going to lead us right up to Easter. It's a great series. I'm really having fun with that. We're talking about the things that we're choosing. And when we selected this series title, it brought some memories of some of the protests we've seen and different things and all that, and it kind of created some tension, I think. It's kind of funny, right? People are saying, well, how are they going to come down on that? And it's really just a way for us to say, hey, we've got some choices to make in life, and that's really what it's about. So we always start with a warm-up question. Everybody needs to answer it. So Ron, we've got a great warm-up question.
Yeah, so sometimes, Dan, we choose to do scary things. And or maybe we don't choose them, but we have to do them anyway. What is the scariest thing you've ever done?
Oh, you got to think about that. And before they go there, Ron, what's the scariest thing you've ever done?
I once climbed a cliff at the ocean with big waves crashing below me and rocks coming down. It was terrible.
Yeah, that's scary. I've had a few cliff moments. Jumping into the water from heights, those things are pretty scary, especially the first time you've done it. Well, before you come back, read Matthew chapter 14, verses 14 through 36. And then think about this question and answer it, and be ready to answer it as we come back. What happened right before Jesus had the disciples get into the boat? And then we'll talk about it. Okay, Ron, this is a famous story. I hope people read this and got into this story, because I just think it's just an amazing story to me. It's interesting. Almost doesn't seem real, does it?
No, it's pretty incredible how Jesus has compassion on the people. He feeds the 5,000. And it's this great kind of, high point for the disciples. I'm sure everybody loved Jesus. Everybody loved the disciples. Of course, they're bringing food, right? And then it's interesting that at this very high point, he says, all right, you guys get in the boat. We need to get out of here.
Go to the other side.
And then he goes up to pray. I must have thought that was a little weird. Like, okay, if we're in the boat and you're going to pray, how are you going to get there? Yeah. I don't know what they thought.
Go to the other side, which made them have to choose, right? They just did what he said.
Yeah.
But then, again, comes down to the thing, the storm in the middle of the night. Kind of interesting, which is kind of what we want them to focus on next, right?
So the next thing is, what was the scene when Jesus came to the disciples? Now, actually, you can go on the computer, and I did this. I got the satellite map of the Sea of Galilee, and I overlaid it on Puget Sound. And I found that the Sea of Galilee would fit between Seattle and Whidbey Island. Right, so you could kind of imagine that bit of water. And we've probably seen times when the wind kicks up out there, and it could get kind of rough.
They shut the ferries down, right?
Imagine a night like that. So think about that, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay, and we want you to read the verses there that you can find that as verses 24 and 26. Okay, that was a great description, Ron, of that Seattle to Whidbey Island, that passage there. About the same distance across as well, a mile or two across, right?
Yeah, a few miles. It's kind of it's maybe not as narrow. So, but it's a pretty good chunk of water. And if we think, you're in a speedboat, but these guys were rowing oars, it could get a little dicey.
Didn't they, some of them had sails, but they were certainly going against the wind, it seemed like.
Probably,
right? Yeah. And they were turned into the wind so they wouldn't tip over.
In fact, the book of John says they were about 3 miles offshore.
Wow. So that's tough. That's out in the middle of the lake, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it was big,
So the question now we want them to kind of think about, what did Peter let go of? What was it that he had to let go of? And can you imagine doing this? And you can look at this in verses 28 through 31. Okay, Ron, this is a great picture. Jesus comes walking up on the water, and what do you think Peter let go of? Well, I can think of a lot of things.
The easy answer is he let go of the boat.
Yeah.
But really, it's a lot more than that. He let go of the only safe thing in his world at that moment.
Right. That was the thing keeping him from drowning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. He let go of something he had never, ever walked on water, certainly, right? He had never, ever done anything like that before.
Sure.
It's amazing that he even wants to try it. It's why we all like Peter, right? He's always doing stuff that no one else is doing.
Yeah, and it shows an incredible degree of trust because he says, Lord, if it's you, call me to come. Like, I know if it's you. If you say come, I'm doing it.
I'm going to do it. That's a great thought. So, how did this episode change their view of Jesus? That's what we want you to focus on. How did the episode change their view of Jesus? Look at chapter 14, verse 33. You can also look in Mark 6, right?
Yeah, Mark 6:52.
52, and then you can kind of compare those two and just think about how this changed their view of Jesus. Okay, Ron, so he gets out there, he sinks, Jesus saves him, he gets in the boat, and everything gets quiet.
Yeah.
And how did it change your view, you think?
Well, you would have to think, like, didn't they just see him feed 5,000? Wouldn't that convince them? But in Mark 6:52, Mark says that their eyes hadn't been opened yet, so that miracle just somehow didn't do it for them. Mm-hmm. And when they saw this one, they were like, okay, Son of God.
Yeah. Well, what's he say? Even the wind and the waves obey him.
Yeah.
Because these are fishermen. A lot of them are fishermen. They've fought the wind and the waves a long time. Nobody had the power to do that.
Right.
This truly was God in their mind. This was a defining moment in their mind, I think. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty powerful moment. So now let's focus a little bit further. How does their response compare to the response of the people at Gennesaret? Did I say that right? Gennesaret?
I think so, yeah.
Gennesaret. And verses 35 and verse 36. You can kind of look at that and see their response, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
So, Dan, it's funny because at the end of this chapter, you have this great scene on the lake, and all of a sudden there's this thing on Gennesaret. It's kind of like on the one hand, I was tempted just like, well, forget about that. But then it hit me. These people, they're like, oh, there's a healer here. Come on, sick people, everybody's sick, come on. But that was different than the disciples who just said, you're the Son of God. Sometimes people just want, God to heal, to help, or whatever, but they don't want to recognize him as Lord.
Jesus was always interested in driving people deeper in their own spiritual life and in their own thinking and in their own faith. And he was really careful in how he did these things. So it was pretty amazing. It was a good insight. So any more thoughts on that, Ron?
I think today a lot of people say, God's great, church is great as long as it's useful. If it makes me have a better life, makes my family better, holds my marriage together, we like God for what he does for us. And those are all great things, but really it has to come down to, would we worship him as God no matter what?
So we look at this passage here, there's 2 or 3 choices there. You had the choice of the disciples to go across the lake, the choice of Peter to step out of the boat, and then these other folks choosing to believe maybe in a way that wasn't as healthy. So what are your choices? Here, as you close out the study, take a little bit of time and think about the choices you're making in life, and take time to pray for each other. This is a good time for you to get to know each other and pray for each other. And we'll see you next week at Connection Point Studies.